into your session, except one thing. Those who wants to join the Microsoft Teams and collaborate before and after the session, please send your first name and last name and email address in the chat. We will add you into the Microsoft Teams of Testoper community. It really helps when you join there and help others, and collaboratively everyone becomes successful in their career or entrepreneurship or entrepreneur goals that you guys have. So with that, Kavita, over to you, please.
Thanks, Kader. So good morning, everyone. Last session we had an overview about what is microservice and what are the advantages of using microservice, how we can use it. And I showed a small demo or like how a microservice works. So we'll get into the details, how to build a microservice. So this will be on Spring Boot. Just before I go into the today's session, right? Yesterday I had shared, how to set up your workspace with the Spring Boot so that we can run a Spring Boot application easily. So I had shared it on the Teams also. Please go through that. I'm going off video. Oh. So we have to install Java 11 and Maven as well as the STS. STS is the IDE which will be using to develop the Spring Boot application. It will be something like this. And also I have shared a few steps like how to build a new Spring Boot application, as well as we have pushed a small demo application also, how to check out from GitHub and do it. So please go through that steps there. Okay. I'll just get started with today's session. So session 2 is Spring Boot application. So we'll be covering, what is Spring Boot, what are the advantages of using it, and then how some details of what is the Spring Boot starter package, and some annotations which will come handy for us. And then how to do a Spring Boot application using the Spring Analyzer concept also, and a small demo. Yeah. So last week we discussed what is a microservice. It is a standalone application where we can deploy it easily and scale it up easily, right? So to help it, we have the Spring Boot being introduced. If when we are talking about Spring Boot, there are many things which the Spring has delivered, like the Spring MVC framework, Spring IO, etc. But Spring Boot is come out very well. Like it comes with additional features. It is no comparison with the previous Spring frameworks, but it comes with additional features. So so it makes the life of a Java developer very easy, and you can build application very fast. So by how can we achieve that is with minimal configurations, and the entire Spring configuration setup is not needed, which was there in the earlier Spring frameworks. So some of the additional features and the benefits to name here are the Spring Boot starters. It is called the Spring Boot starter kit, where you just configure them in the pom.xml. I'll show you how to do that. And your configuration and your starting of your Spring Boot project is done very easily. And then Spring Boot gives an auto configuration, so that you can start a Spring Boot application without much configuration to be done. Earlier Spring frameworks like MVC, we had lot of XML configurations to be done as part of the web.xml and all those for every bean and the action classes, etc. Here it is not like that. It is the configuration is just with annotations, and it is just your configuration is very simple here. And we have a Spring Boot actuator, which we'll be seeing in the next session. And then we have an embedded servlet container support. That is, it comes with the Tomcat inbuilt with it, and you have the view, that is the MVC framework also can be built using a Spring application. That is a web application also can be built with a Spring Boot application. So in simple terms, this is what Spring Boot is. Spring framework plus you have the embedded HTTP servers, and it is devoid of the XML configurations. Okay, I'm just moving on. So we'll be talking more about pom.xml and its dependency. So we will have to have this known before we start how to do a Spring Boot project. Okay, so just to brief you, pom.xml, it stands for the project object model. So shorthand is POM. So it is an XML representation of a Maven project. We know Maven is used for build process, right? So it helps in the build and dependency management easily. And it contains all the dependent libraries to be used, so that we can mention them in the pom.xml, and ultimately it will be added to the class path easily. And then we can add the plugins to be used for the build process. So all the things are configured in the pom.xml. So that this will be a main core functionality which we need to understand in detail. And the dependencies. So dependencies, for each framework or the support libraries we are going to use, we have to add such a dependency in the pom.xml. So just one example I have shown you, that is Spring Boot starter test is one example. So this entry I have shown here. So I have made you aware what is pom.xml and what is a dependency. So we'll get started, like how a Spring Boot needs to be, a project needs to be set up. Okay, so I'll just go back. So we know that, for any project in an IDE, we can create a new project and start working on it. So with an IDE like STS, we can just create a new Spring Boot starter project and start working. Okay. So here we'll have to give the group, so which will be a package structure, and the artifact ID, which will be your service or the application you're going to build. So we can start this way, or we can start using start spring.io, which is the initializer. I'll just show you that later. Okay. So we just create here. These steps are all there in the steps I shared yesterday. Okay. So this is where you select what you're going to do, and you can add all the dependencies, if you know prior. So I know that I'm going to use something from Spring Web, so I'll select that for an example, and I'll do a finish. So I've got one service built. So this is the pom.xml. So whatever we have given, the group ID, the artifact, the version, everything comes here, and the dependencies which I talked about got added because I selected during the initial thing. We can add this based on our need at any point of time. Okay. So the sample code which we have pushed in also has the same thing here. So this pom.xml helps in the Maven build as well as adding the dependency. So since the starter web has been added and the test has been added, all the dependent jars have been automatically pulled into your project here. So this is how a pom.xml looks and the dependency. So the very first thing we need to add is the startup parent. So parent is something which will help in bringing all the Spring Boot Spring framework into your application. So you add a startup parent. And then if you're going to have any web application built out of this, you can add the starter web. So starter web can be added. Okay, and similarly, any other frameworks you're going to use or this one, we can keep adding here. And once you do a Maven build, it gets added to your project. Okay. And then ensure you have your Java version mentioned. So here we are using Java 11. So we mentioned Java 11. If you are using 1.8, we can mention that also. So at the time of the pom.xml configuration itself, we are supposed to give that. And then the plugin. This plugin is which will help you to build your project. Okay, the Maven plugin will be helping you to build your project. So all the dependent jars come in based on your pom.xml. So based on this, your class path also will get set. So .class path file, if you see in our Project Explorer, we can see there, or we can see here as the Java build path. All this will be added. All the libraries come here. Whatever we have added in the Maven, that is the pom.xml. Okay, so these 4 steps are very important for any Spring Boot project. It doesn't mean that we have to configure everything at the beginning itself. As and when our needs increase, right, we can go and keep adding there. And then the important thing for a Spring Boot to work is Spring Boot application to work is the Spring Boot app launcher. Okay, so we have a class which acts as an entry point to a Spring Boot application. Okay. So any application will when we create a Spring Boot application, Spring Boot starter class will be added. Okay. So this one, the demo application which I created, this was automatically added. So it's like any main a class with a main method which runs on its own. So the Spring application .run ensures that the Spring Boot application starts on its own with this application class being passed as an argument. So just to reiterate, we have to ensure that the pom.xml is configured correctly and a Spring Boot application starter classes being mentioned, application launcher classes being mentioned. So the Spring Boot project has been set up now. Okay, so it's not yet ready for the service being deployed, but the setup has been done. Okay, any questions till now?
Yes, hello Kavita.
Yeah.
Can we use Java 11 only, or it can be done on Java 8 as well?
Hey, we can do 1.8 also.
Sorry?
Just that it can be 8 also. Just that you have to mention the correct version here.
Okay, and is it very similar to like Java Maven project, right? All pom.xml fine, we need to add dependencies over there.
Yes. like in the Maven file, you would have added each and every dependency separately. But here, the Spring Boot comes with its own packages. Like, you know, for the web, we had separate dependencies, right? Here it is into a single one.
Mm-hmm. And these STS IDE is the only one we can use, or Eclipse?
No, you can do Eclipse also. You can do any IDE. STS is more comfortable, so we are using that.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So just some more information on the Spring Boot application class. You know, that launcher class, right? It has this annotation Spring Boot application. So by giving this annotation, what happens is it makes the Spring Boot application know that this is your the launcher class, and it makes the it is the entry point for your Spring Boot application, to be precise. So this annotation, you know, it is a combination of the auto configuration and enable auto configuration annotation, component scan, as well as the configurations. Earlier, we used to give these separately, like, you know, so that the Spring application knows about it. But this Spring Boot application annotation ensures that all the three tasks are done using the single annotation being included. So this is how your application launcher class looks. Just a sample code is added here. So we don't have to specifically tell what are the the packages to be scanned for the using the component scan, as well as separate at configuration annotations also need not be given. So, just listed down a few Spring Boot starter, whatever dependencies can be added. Mostly, we will be using the JPA for the the database and the transaction related ones, and the starter web will be the for if you're going to deploy it as a web application also. Apart from that, any other dependencies also can be added based on your nature of the project. So moving on, you know, we've come across many annotations for exposing a microservice or you know, a REST API to consume, right? So these are a few annotations which are commonly used. So just I'll list down. You know, we will come across this even with a simple REST-based APIs also. So REST controller, you know, it is just to tell that your controller class is ready for you know, the request handling, and you know, it can take any JSON or XML input and output response. And then request mapping, it is to ensure that the handler methods are mapped to the HTTP request. So we have the get mapping, post mapping for the get and post requests. And you know, we use the query params in case we are passing the params as part of your get request. And then we have the path variable. In case it is part of the as part of the URL, if you are giving the path variable, we use this annotation. And then the request body and the response body, so that you know the request has the you know JSON or whatever is the request going to be sent, we give that annotation to ensure that the controller knows about it. And then the request header and response header. If you have scenarios where we have to pass header objects, we use this annotations. And then the exception handler annotation is for mapping the exception class to that particular exception scenario. And then the response status. Any response from an API, right, has to go with the status. So we mentioned that with this annotation. And there are many more, but these are generally used. So this is another way to start a Spring Boot starter project. In case you're using any other IDE or you are using, any other framework, you can start your project so that it builds the initial package and gives you. From there, you can import you into your IDE and start working. So I'll just show this. So like I showed initially, the same kind of configurations which the STS we gave, right? The group ID, artifact, all those you will mention here, and then we generate. So it gives a package out of this. This package we put into our any folder in our file system, and then you can expose into your IDE. Import into your IDE and start working from there. So while we are adding, right, we can all the dependencies which has to go into the pom.xml, we can select here, like the Spring Web, everything will be added so that the pom.xml which gets generated will have this. So this is another way to initialize your Spring Boot project. Any questions so far? Okay. And just moving on to the demo application we built. This has been put into the GitHub. We will once we pull from the GitHub, right? We will be able to import into your IDE and see like this. Okay, so this is already pre-built, but it has all the things which I mentioned, the pom.xml. Here we've given all the dependencies, mentioned the Java version, and the plugin is also added. There's something called Swagger which we have added here. Swagger is a component, which helps in creating the API documentation easily. And also, we can use this tool to we generally use the Postman to test any API, right? Any post or request calls, but Swagger gives us that UI to do it by itself. I'll show you how to do that. So we've added that here. So it gives the documentation, like, what will be the request pattern and the response pattern also for any APIs. Okay, Spring, whatever we need, we have added here. Okay, so coming to the application.properties, this also will be automatically created. So in case by default the port is 8080 here, but in case we want to run it on a different port, we can change it here. So this overrides the default port. You can mention that here. Server.port is the property name. Coming to the actual class, right? Like this is the launcher class. And to launch your Swagger API, right? So we've just added this so that anything in the in this package structure will be pulled for Swagger API documentation as well as for the API testing. Okay, so that's what we have given here. So, and this annotation also, enable Swagger will ensure that it enables the Swagger. And any REST API, we have the controller class. So we just expose the controller class with the REST controller annotation and a request mapping. So your API call request mapping starts with the bank service V1. V1 is generally given to ensure that, you know, in case there is versioning of your APIs, this will help. And we all know what is an auto wired. You know, just to create the service class, the instance of the service class, we use the auto wiring annotation. And then using the post mapping and the get mapping. So to ensure that this is a post call and a get call. So this will be your API for the post call, and this will be the get call. So here what we've done is we have configured it to consume a JSON in the request JSON as the request format, and also it produces a JSON that is also in the output format. Okay. And you know, the request body annotations is clearly giving that it will be of the type create bank request. So this is just a simple Pojo class which will have the you know, the whatever is in the JSON format, right? We have converted it into a Pojo class here to tell that you know, these are all the attributes which needs to be there. So some things are not blank, so they have to be mandatorily given. Rest can be blank in the request. So this ensures that your request format is also being created. You are defining it. And then we are also having the response format. So how your API response should look like. So that also we have defined how the pattern. And once we do some action, right? It sets into the response. Okay, so this HTTP OK will be the response code which goes in. In case of an error, we set the error response also. Okay, so this is a post call and a get call. So this is a sample controller class which shows that the service class actual action or the you know, whatever needs to be done, we have segregated it to the service class. Okay, so here what we're doing is we're not doing any transaction or you know, any DB save for this demo. That one we will see in parts of the next session. So what we have done here is as part of the service class, right? So we've used the service annotation here to tell that this is a service class. And then we are just adding that into a map for this part of the demo. So whatever comes as a request, we're just adding it to the map, and it will be stored for this session. Okay. So whatever, even the get also will get from the map and return back. But ideally, what would have happened is we have to purge it into the database. But we will do that as part of the next session where we are talking about JPS. Okay, so so the idea is the service class does the actual work. So we have segregated its functionality from the controller class. So we have defined how the controller classes, what it will do, the request response pattern, and the service class. So ideally, when we are writing any microservice, we ensure that each and every task each and every class does its own task, and we are not trying to merge everything at one place. And there is clear-cut distinction there. So these are the response classes like bank information or the create bank response. Okay, and then we've had the exception handler class here and the error response also. Like in case of errors, how should the error response be displayed back to the consumer? Okay, so all this we have defined here. Okay, and we have enabled the Swagger also. So we will run this application as a Spring Boot application. Okay, first we'll So when we run as a Spring Boot application, it has started here. So right now we have changed the port to 8081. So it will be running on 8081 now. So it is, you can see that here. Okay, and we can see that the API docs are also generated. So this Swagger URL which I was talking about is like this. So if we, sorry. Okay, so it'll give the bank controller which all the methods we have exposed as APIs, right? It will be displayed here. And once we click here, it will show us what is the request which has to go here. So basically, we have defined this as part of the bank request, right? So that is displayed as the JSON here. And the response pattern also, what will be the response. Okay. So this will help any developer to unit test, or any QA person also to verify the application. If you want, generally what we do is to try out the API, that is the endpoint working or not. We just go to the Postman, and we give the details, right? To give us a post request call or a get request call. But what happens is we may not know the request pattern or the response pattern. So this Swagger also gives an option to try it out. So when we try it out, it works as a Postman here. So we can give the address. So I'm just taking some details. And because you're talking about a bank, I'm just mentioning a city and a phone number. So this is a post call. So what we have written in that post method is it will add to a map the bank details into a map. So here this is my request. So this will go as a request body, and I do an execute here. Okay, so ultimately the API is being called. If you see here, the localhost bank service v1 banks API is being called with these input parameters as a JSON. And we are getting the response body. So we just generated an ID for that request call, and we have saved it. Okay. So now the same thing we have a get method, right? So we'll try with the same ID for the get. So this shows what should be your parameters, the query parameters, and how will your response be. So here, because I know that I got this ID, right? I have copied this. I'll try it out here. So I'm pasting that ID, and I'm executing the API call here, the get call. So the get call has been made with this ID. If you see here, this is the controller class. The get call has been made with this ID, and this is the response. Here the response is the bank details. In the bank details, we had the all these details, right? So that is coming as the response. Currently, as I told, it has been saved into the map. We are retrieving from the map. The same thing can be put into the Postman and also tried. Same thing. Okay, same response we got. So Swagger helps in even for the testing the APIs easily. Okay. In case I'm passing an ID which is not there in the map now, I'm passing something else. So we've defined how the error response also needs to be there. So that is what is being displayed here. Generally, an API has to come back with an error response or not found or with the correct status. So that also has to be defined correctly. Same thing with the post also. We're using an so this is generated a new ID now. I've showed how to do it using Swagger as well as using a Postman. I was talking about Swagger documentation. So this is the Swagger documentation. It'll give the JSON format, but this is a viewable format actually. So all the APIs exposed as part of the your application we can see here. We don't have to write a separate documentation for request and response. Any questions? You want me to?
Hello, Kavita. Can you explain this thing in a requirements form, like as a business stakeholder or
Okay.
business person, what we are trying to achieve by doing this?
Yeah. Okay. If I get it right, your question is how can I translate this into a requirement into a service, right? Okay.
Yes, kind of.
Yes. Okay. So now translating this back, right? So now what my application did is I need to save the details of the bank, okay, along with the address and retrieve it. So this is my requirement. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this requirement now, if I translate it into my service, so I need my service to save the details and retrieve it when required. So what I have done is I have gone ahead and configured my application, the microservice application, so that it will take so because there is a need for me to save in the sense here it is post request. So you're putting something, okay? So that's yeah. So that's why we have added the create bank, okay? Once it is saved, I need to retrieve the details which I have saved. So that retrieve is translating to a get. Okay. So for that, whatever we have saved, we are trying to retrieve it. Did I answer it correctly, or you're looking for more information?
Yeah, is it better if you can give me some more? Because I want to know, let's say
okay. You just give me a typical case. I'll try to explain, because this is very simple flow which we've done.
Yeah. So let's say I want to know in a format like as a user, I want to save some bank information and get something, right? So,
Yes. So yeah. So here that's what. So I want to save and I want to retrieve as needed. Correct. So save is so when we translate it to the services point of view, right? From a requirement point of view, it is a save and get or retrieve. Correct. But when we translate it to a service or a functionality perspective, here we are trying to segregate it into a post and a get call. Post will put something into the application and Get call will retrieve something, whatever is available.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how we have translated the requirement into a service endpoint. So that if you have an UI, right? Tomorrow, if you build an UI where or UI or a form, okay, as simple as a form which takes in all this as an input parameter, my address, my email, the bank details. What it does is ultimately from the form it collects this information, it translates into a JSON request format, hits this endpoint.
Yeah.
Okay, so hits this endpoint of the post, that is create bank. Okay, so what happens? It gets posted into the application. It gets saved into the application. Okay, and then you have a UI or you make a request to retrieve it with the ID you have got it. The response is an ID generated, right? So you go click on that ID, give that ID as an input, and try to do a get bank details. Okay. So what happens is, again, that gets converted into an API request call. It comes to the service, the get call gets called, and with that ID, it tries to match whatever is being saved, and it will retrieve it and give back the information. We can add more endpoints for delete. We can add endpoints for update. Okay.
Yeah, got it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'll just see if I've covered. Okay. And similarly, we can write multiple services like this and expose endpoints for doing the job we need. We can have, here we have just saved it into a map, but in real time it calls a database or it calls another application to save or retrieve the information. Okay, so we'll be seeing those as part of the next session, like how to use Spring JPA, and also how to communicate between two microservices. So similar services when we add, right? How to do it, and then how to unit test using the Spring Boot test framework, as well as what does the Spring Actuator does. Any questions? You want me to show the demo again? I think I was a little fast.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So my question is, for microservice architecture, can we use it with, for example, what I'm trying to explain is, okay, maybe I have two developers in my team. One knows Python very well, one knows Java. And microservice architecture, you can build a little functionality and release to your end users, right? So
Yes.
for my Python developer, how can he incorporate what my Java developer has done? So what I'm trying to ask is, can this microservice architecture be used with different programming languages?
Yes. Yes, microservice, can be done with different programming languages. Each microservice can be built, one can be on Spring Boot Java, another can be on Python, another can be Node.js, or even Golang. Anything, and ultimately they get converted. It is the endpoints which we are going to call, and the request response pattern might be just the JSON or just a URL call, right? So it doesn't matter what happens, what is inside, or which programming language has been used inside.
Okay, thank you.
So that advantage also is there, because based on the developers' convenience or their skill, right? We can build microservices, which is not dependent on a particular language.
Okay, thanks.
Hello. Hi, Kavita.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kavita, can you show the demo once again? Actually, I have joined some before only, some minutes before only. I have missed
Yeah, sure.
the previous parts.
Sure. Just running the application.
Yes,
Yeah.
show
Just
it,
running the application is fine. And what you have done, like, can you like give an introduction type, like?
Yeah, so guys, those who have missed and Anand, are you in the Microsoft Teams of Testoper community?
Yeah, I am attending the session via team only.
No. So Microsoft Testoper has our own Microsoft Teams, right? So we normally collaborate before and after that team, and all the YouTube videos and sessions videos are all posted in the Teams and also.
Oh, no. I'm not in that team.
Yeah.
Can
So
you please share the link?
yeah, so someone will in the volunteers will actually put that. If you go up, you would actually see it in the chat. Right, you have to join the
Okay.
WhatsApp group, and there are some steps in the chat. You can always go there and join, and all these things will be available in the YouTube. Just in the interest of time, we have 8 more minutes. Interest of time, and also ensuring that for others it's not repeated. So I'll let Kavita to proceed.
Okay. Where actually where I will get the link?
So just look at the chat window of this, please.
Okay, sure.
So just
Okay. Thanks.
and then rest will be okay. And guys, don't forget to re-register in this program. And if you don't register in the future third session, which is coming on the next week Saturday, you can take the link from this week Eventbrite and then keep it somewhere in the notepad so you can click and join the next week's session. So this is the second session of the series, and we have 4 more sessions to go moving forward. With that, Kavita, over to you. Yeah.
Yes, Kader.
Kavita, this is Shakti here.
Yes, Shakti.
Yeah, Kavita, like how is what does this @validator do? Like how is the custom exception handler that you have written? How is it being handled?
It's one, right? So this controller advice is an annotation which handles this exception. Okay. I think I'll have Murli explain this better. Let me not confuse on this. Murli?
Yeah, Kavita.
Okay.
So actually, whenever an exception occurs in the application, the flow comes here. And here we have defined all the possible exceptions. So based on that exception, it will goes to that method and the error response will be thrown.
So it will be despite of the exception that is on controller or service or repository or whatever it is, right?
Yes. Anywhere in the application, any exception occurs, it will come to this customized exception handler. And if we don't define any specific exception for that specified exception, it will goes to that default exception class, handle all exceptions, right? It will go to that flow and it will throw that internal server error.
Okay.
So basically we have to define each and every error like 404, 400 like that.
I get it.
And I think you have also asked about that upgrade validated annotation, right? In the controller.
Yeah, so that is a kind of it validates the conditions in Polo. Is it that right? Like
yes. Yeah. So we have put that for the, you have seen, right? 45th line we have we're validating that bank ID. It should be positive. So to make it validated, we have put that in the class level there.
Okay.
Just going through the steps I had shared in the Teams, okay? You know, which will help you to set up your environment if it is not yet ready.
Yeah. So, Kavita, can I
Yes.
take some questions? Is
Sure.
coming up. I just wanted to give the perspective, guys. Those who do not know, right? We are a non-profit and completely run by the volunteers, like Kavita and me and many others. Whoever is supporting you, it's all run by the volunteers. It's a non-profit, and we don't have any full-time employees. And we use Microsoft Teams as a collaboration platform for collaborating before and after. And in the Microsoft Teams, we post all the presentations and the link to the YouTube of the previous sessions and so on, right? So what I recommend you guys is, if you are not there in the Microsoft Teams, please send your first name, last name, and email address. We will add you into the Microsoft Teams so that you get access to this. Just want to make sure that you understand that governance point of view. There's a number of questions coming around that. All right, Kavita, over to you to just share whatever that you wanted to share and close the session. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to tell you now, I'll just like whatever is the steps given as part of the prerequisite, please follow that. And you know, you'll have your IDE set up, and you can start writing your own Spring Boot applications. It is very easy to understand those steps. I showed them as part of this session also, but you know, we've given screenshots here how to set up. As well as you know, we push this code into the GitHub repository. You can you know, just clone it, and you know, you'll get that code into your workspace, and you can start using this this application also, the sample application which we put here.
Sure. And Mickey, where is all these presentations are stored? That was another question. Can you?
If you go to the Codathon channel.
Okay. So
do you want me to
are you in
share
the
my
Microsoft Teams of Testoper right now, or Kavita?
No, Kadar.
Can I share my screen then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Share it and show it to them so that that question is also addressed. Yeah. So people know where exactly things are stored.
Okay. Techtopper community. Sometimes it goes unhidden. Techtopper Codathon. And then just in files. It'll be. It's based on each session. It's all right there.
So you'll be posting today's session's presentation there. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And also, please go back and show them that YouTube links in the top files next to YouTube. Yeah.
So on the top, that's YouTube links. And it's all here.
Codathon program related stuff. Okay, guys, so that's what it is, right? So you got to join to the Testoper team collaboration platform we have to get access to all.
Yeah, actually, how we can join that?
First name, last name, email address. Look at the chat. So this, if you look at the chat, right, we have mentioned you can, if you have a closed WhatsApp group, you can join that WhatsApp group, and then in the WhatsApp group, you can ask for first name. You can provide your first name, last name, email address. Some volunteers from Testoper will definitely add you into this. Once they add you in, then you will get an email from Microsoft Teams. So all you have to do is download the Microsoft Teams, put your email address, and reset the password. Then you will be in, and you'll be able to see what exactly Mickey was showing you guys, right? And then you should be able to access the rest of the things from there.
Okay, then the WhatsApp group we have to send now. Okay,
Yeah, or you can send it even in this chat, right? The chat group of this session, type it and send it as well. Doesn't really matter. Some people who are comfortable in we use WhatsApp only for emergency communication. Supposing if you got to cancel the sessions and things like that, If you're not, some people don't prefer to be in WhatsApp group, which is okay. For those who are not, prefer to have join the WhatsApp group, you can provide your first name, last name, email address in this chat. We'll add you in.
Actually, it's not it's not showing the button to send. Means it's not allowing me to send.
Yeah, maybe because you don't have. Normally, people who join will be able to send, but if you join through the web or something, there are sometimes they don't
Okay.
allow you to send that. Right? So best.
Okay, then I have to.
Just click the link. You can see the chats right in the window.
Yeah, I can see the chat.
Yeah, just copy and paste it. And then join the WhatsApp.
Hi, Kadir.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
Very good. Javed. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. It's me. Okay. Can I have the schedule of the sessions? Because I just forgot. That's why I'm late.
So, you got to go to the Eventbrite. So go to Eventbrite and then do Testoper.
They mail me every time, but I want to, if there is any schedule that I want to add into my mail calendar, they will just notify me.
Yeah. So you got, I don't have there's a couple of ways you can do it, right? One way is go to the testoper.com. Right, and if you go to the testoper.com, there is just a minute here. So there is something called as programs calendar, right? Our programs and programs calendars.
Okay. Then I can find it there. Okay.
Yeah. So here you would actually see, Mickey, why is it showing this?
Like I want to have the export the file and I will put it in my calendar. Then it will be easy for me.
Yeah, so that is one way you can do. The other easiest, just go to the Testoper community Eventbrite, and then, like for example, build app. You got to click this build app, and then click this. It will show you, right? Select dates. And then you have we have 4 more sessions to go. Buy tickets for all the 4 sessions. Then you will be automatically sent reminder. If you don't buy, you will not be able to send reminder. And when you buy, it will also send you the calendar invite. You can just click it and save it in your Google Calendar or your work calendar, right? So.
Okay, I will do it myself.
Okay, perfect. Kavita, anything else from your end, or should we close the session?
I'm done with what I prepared for today, Kadir.
Perfect. And we always respect time for attendees and also for the presenters. We were on time, 3 minutes delayed, which is not too bad. Anyone else have any other questions before we say goodbye?
Yeah, just one suggestion. Please spend some time and try to do this so that it will be helpful and prepare for the next session also.
Yeah, and Kavita, you're also sending all these details in the Microsoft Teams, right?
Yes, I had shared the prerequisite steps.
Yeah, actually show it to them also, right? Just to be clear. So there is a Teams, and you have Testoper Codathon, and in the Codathon, so see here. So that's why it's important to be in this collaboration platform. So you can even ask questions to Kavita before and after the sessions and so on. Whenever she's online, she will definitely log in and she will provide inputs. Good. So Kavita, I'll give you the honor to close the session. Go ahead.
Thanks, Kadir. And I would like to thank Murli also. He helped me with the demo application. So we'll come prepared for the next session. I'm really looking forward for that.
Thank you very, very much. And as I was listening this session, I also did a post in LinkedIn thanking you.
Oh, really?
Murli, please connect with me in LinkedIn. Maybe in the next post, I'll tag you. Thank you, guys. Take care. Have a wonderful day. It's good weather outside. Have some good time. Stay safe. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.